Hello and welcome to Bespoke. I'm CP, and in this video I'm going to be comparing the Ventura Cigars Psyko 7 Natural, Connecticut and Nicaragua. Firstly, if you want to see full reviews of each of these cigars, simply head to the description below where you'll see some links, or you'll see them cascade above my head throughout the course of this video. I'd also like to thank Roy Summer of Davidoff UK for sending me these Robustos. We also had the Toro of the Natural, but it's great to have the Robusto as well so we could compare all of them with the same Vitola. As mentioned in each of the reviews, these cigars were stored for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks specifically, in the Boveda acrylic humidor that you can see behind me to ensure they were properly acclimated for the review at 69% using Boveda packs, and they were monitored regularly with a Boveda butler. Psyko 7 first started as a collaborative project between Ventura Cigars general manager Patrick Hurd, or El Diablo Blanco, and Henke Kellner of Davidoff Cigars. And the original was first launched in 2013. The Maduros followed soon after. I believe the Connecticut came out in 2016, and in 2019 Nicaragua was introduced. So the Natural, the Maduro, which I unfortunately don't have, and the Connecticut were all produced at one of the Davidoff cigar factories. Initially it was at the Occidental factory, then as that closed and was used for storage it moved to the OK Cigar factory, but I've heard that it's also made in the main Davidoff factory as well. While the first releases were blended by Henke Kellner and produced at the Davidoff cigar factories, the fourth edition, which is the Nicaragua, is quite interesting in that it was blended by Indiana Ortez, the daughter of Omar Ortez, using their own tobaccos, and it was produced in Nicaragua at the Agroindustrial Nicaragüense de Tabacos, or Agro Tabacos for short. I can talk about these blends in detail, but I talk about those already in the individual reviews, and I don't want to take too much time on it either, but I'll quickly touch over a couple of differences that are of note. First of all, the Natural has a Dominican-Cuban seed wrapper and a Mexican Sumatra binder with a very multinational filler which has Peruvian, Honduran, and US and Dominican leaves in the filler. Meanwhile, the Connecticut is more reminiscent of a traditional Davidoff cigar in that it uses an Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper, a Dominican San Vicente binder, and a primarily Dominican filler, although I have listed here, it was listed as a multi-country blend. As I mentioned earlier, the Nicaragua is a Nicaraguan puro, and what sets this apart compared to most Nicaraguan cigars is that it uses a Nicaraguan Connecticut Claro wrapper, which is from the Ortez's 2007 crop, using the Desflorado technique. Another interesting difference between these cigars is that all the Robustos that are produced in the Dominican Republic are 5.5 by 50. Meanwhile, the Nicaragua is actually 5 by 50, so it's half an inch shorter. In terms of look and feel, they're of course very different because they feature different tobaccos, but the construction, they're all quite similar. The Natural is perhaps a little bit more rustic than the other two. What's quite intriguing about the Nicaragua is it's relatively pale because it's a Connecticut, and so it aligns itself with the Connecticut that is produced in the Dominican Republic. Nevertheless, the flavors are very, very different. Even on the nose, on the foot, in the nose, I was getting on the Connecticut Hey Praline and Milk Chocolate, whereas the Nicaragua was more hazelnut, malt and butterscotch. Both were quite creamy, but there was more nuttiness in the Nicaragua. Similarly, the pre-light was very intriguing with the Nicaragua, and it featured some golden syrup, lemon curd and cinnamon. As for the palate, none of them are particularly full-bodied. The mildest of the three is definitely the Connecticut made in the Dominican Republic. However, the Nicaragua isn't much stronger either, and it's a mostly mild to medium experience. Whereas the Natural, while you'd expect, given its darkness, a full-bodied experience, is actually more medium and quite middle of the road. Both the Connecticut and the Nicaragua were quite creamy throughout, whereas the Natural focused more on gourmand flavors that were quite close to charred oak, so some yeastiness, some spices such as cloves and cinnamon. Meanwhile, the Connecticut leaned more towards nuts, creams. There's some mascarpone in the first third, there's some butterscotch in the final third, there's some aromatics such as charred bay leaf. However, the Nicaragua, it also had this aromatic presence with smoked sayet, which is savory, but it also had a little bit of citrus grapefruit, which was quite bitter and tart in the second third. In terms of burn and combustion, which reflects the construction of the cigar, they're all very, very similar. Although the Nicaragua was quite hard when pinched, its draw was absolutely consistent and it was perfect all the way through. Same with the other two. The strongest ash was on the Connecticut. I had a very long ash on the Connecticut that I ended up breaking off myself during the review to show you the quality of the burn. Meanwhile, the Nicaragua had a decent ash on it as well, which plopped off just after the first third. Same thing for the natural. In terms of burn line, the best burn line out of the three of these is definitely the Connecticut. However, the Nicaragua is very good as well with a razor sharp burn line, and the natural was trailing slightly behind. It had some waviness. Nevertheless, as I mentioned earlier, the draw was very nice and they all provide a nice cool smoke. In terms of presentation, each of these cigars are equipped with a distinctive prescription style band that covers almost the whole cigar, and you'll see pictures of these in the written review and also in the videos where I actually hold them up. But when you remove those, and what I love about these prescription style bands is that you can see each of the territories used to make the cigars, some of the tobacco leaves, and a signature from El Diablo Blanco on all of the releases except the Nicaragua, where it's signed by Indiana Ortez herself. The boxes are all very similar. They're narrow rectangular boxes with different colours to distinguish each one of them, which reflect the colours of the second bands. And interesting, by the way, when you remove this main band, you'll always have a second band, so you're not smoking a blank cigar and you can still enjoy a touch of ornamentation. In terms of value, these are all very similarly priced as well. You're looking at about $8.50 for a single, which is excellent value, especially given that two of the blends in my hand are produced by Davidoff cigars. And in terms of occasion, I would probably use them at different times of day, different seasons. The Connecticut is probably more of a morning cigar. The Nicaragua is much more versatile, but I would say early afternoon, post-lunch digestif. And the natural would probably be an evening cigar. Nevertheless, in terms of occasion itself, I would be reluctant to take these to a formal event, as they do have very jazzy bands that may seem a little bit low-brow given the circumstances that you're in. Nevertheless, you can really enjoy these with a couple of mates around a barbecue. You can smoke them casually, and to be honest, if you take them to an event like a party or a wedding, this would be really fun, so it would be a great idea for those. In terms of pairings, while these two do have perhaps comparable profiles, there are some differences. For example, I would lean more towards a lowland single malt for the Connecticut, whereas a Highlands would be best suited for the Nicaragua. A cognac would be great with the Nicaragua as well, whereas I would go for a mild aged rum for the Connecticut. A cognac would be great as well for the natural. You can learn more about the pairings in the individual reviews, of course. As for the overall scores of these cigars, using the Bespoke Unit cigar formula, they are very, very close. But they are all 5-star cigars out of a possible 5. The overall winner is the Connecticut with 87 out of a possible 100. Trailing just after it is the Nicaragua with 86 out of 100. And then there's a pattern developing here. The natural scored 85 out of 100. Indeed, these are cigars that are all very good, but are best suited perhaps to different palates, different preferences, different occasions as well, and different pairings. I personally, my favourite out of the three isn't the Connecticut. I actually really like the Nicaragua. It has a much more adventurous spirit, a little bit of extra personality. You have some citrus notes, you have some gourmand notes, you have some aromatic notes, some creaminess as well. It's quite intriguing, very alluring, and the construction is quite impressive. The Connecticut is a great cigar as well. It's reminiscent of a Davidoff, I'd say an Anniversario, but it's obviously on a very different price point. It's a very enjoyable blend overall. And finally, the natural would be less to my personal palate, but perhaps more to yours. While Psyko 7 cigars seem like a very unorthodox and unapologetically radical style of labeling and marketing, these are actually classically blended cigars with quite alluring and pleasant and sophisticated flavors. So don't let the marketing give you the wrong impression. These are great cigars and they offer excellent quality, especially given their pricing and the value for money that they offer. I hope you've enjoyed this video. That's all from me today. You can of course see the individual reviews of each of these cigars where I go into much more detail. Otherwise, subscribe and you'll see more cigar content like this. We also cover a variety of other men's lifestyle topics such as alcoholic spirits, suits, shoes and fragrances. Head to bespoke.com. You'll see lots more of what we do there. And I look forward to reading your comments and hearing from you soon. Take care.